Chapter 15. I lost all track of time. I was aware that the sun had climbed higher in the sky, so a long time had passed since those first trumpets sounded to announce the start of the battle, and I was still lost in the middle of the crowd, seeing only the backs of the soldiers in front of me. And then, as we moved forward again, I became aware that the ground beneath me was uneven and slippery. I looked down and realised I was stepping on dead bodies of our fallen soldiers. And, suddenly, I found myself close to the front line, with just a few rows of men between me and our shield wall. The Normans were face to face with our men, jabbing with their spears at the front line. Now and then the points of their spears would slip under the shield wall, driving into the legs of our men, and our soldiers would fall, leaving a gap in the wall, which the Normans immediately attacked fiercely. Our front line defended strongly, attacking the Normans with their own spears, axes and swords. At the same time, we've pushed forward. Suddenly, I heard the distant sound of trumpets, and I saw the Norman front line begin to move back. Then their soldiers retreated further, and suddenly they turned and began to run. "We have them!" shouted one soldier in the shield wall. "After them!" And our soldiers began to run after the retreating Normans in pursuit. I looked at my father in alarm. Was this retreat real? Or was it the trick the Norman soldiers had spoken of to try and get our shield wall to break open? "Hold the wall!" shouted my father. His cry was taken up by those around him, and the words were echoed along the line. The soldiers who had gone in pursuit of the Normans were too far away to hear the command to return, but the next wave of our soldiers closed up the shield wall. Away from our front line, the Normans suddenly stopped and turned to face our chasing soldiers. As they did so, I saw the Norman cavalry come galloping in from their side, their horses riding down the soldiers and the swords of the cavalry cutting into them. Immediately, the Normans who appeared to retreat returned to the battle, throwing themselves against our soldiers who had chased them, cutting them down, and then once more launching themselves into an attack against our front line. But our front line, our shield wall, held firm. The battle raged for hours. I became exhausted, but I daren't let myself show it for fear of letting the Normans take advantage. Take advantage of my tiredness. I was not alone in my exhaustion. The men around me were getting slower, and their actions and reactions were the Normans. There were fewer sudden movements now, and the matter of men swinging their swords or axes against one another. And then, suddenly, I was on the front line, next to my father, our shields held in front of us, locked together as part of the wall. I rocked back as the Normans' swords crashed against my wooden shield, while with my sword hand I thrust at the invaders. The blade of my sword couldn't cut through the enemy chainmail, so I changed tactic, raising my sword above my head to bring it down on the enemy's shoulders. But the enemy used their shields to defend against my blows. We pushed our shields against the Normans and struck at them with our weapons, and they did the same, a heavy mass of armed men struggling and hacking at one another. Suddenly I saw my father stumble and pitch forward and fall. Immediately a Norman thrust his spear down with great force on my father, and I saw the point of the spear sink into his body. A wave of anger burst inside me, and I saw my father lying there. I let out a cry of rage and swung my sword at the Norman holding the spear, which was still sticking in my father's body. But another sword swung by a Norman crashed against mine, deflecting my blade downward. Before I could bring it back up, I saw another sword disappear above me. I saw it swinging down towards me, and the next second I felt an explosion of pain in my head, and I was falling, falling, falling.